The stars looked different from the command deck of the Terran warship. Captain Ji-won Park stood with her hands behind her back, watching the blue glow of faster-than-light travel through the viewing screen. She had been a soldier for 12 years now. War was all she knew. Behind her, Commander Hyejin Lee checked the navigation systems. The two women had fought together in 5 campaigns. They trusted each other with their lives. Today, that trust would be tested in a new way. "Captain, we're approaching the Confederation flagship," Hyejin said. Her voice was calm, but Ji-won could hear the tension underneath. This was no ordinary mission. 3 weeks ago, everything changed. The Vorath Empire, a species nobody had heard of before, attacked the outer colonies of the Galactic Confederation. The attack was brutal and efficient. Entire worlds went dark in hours. The Confederation, which had enjoyed peace for over 1,000 years, was losing badly. Humanity was new to galactic politics. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 300 years ago. Most alien species saw them as children playing with dangerous toys. The Confederation had never taken humans seriously. That changed when Ambassador Minho Choi made his proposal. He stood before the Confederation Council and said something that shocked everyone. "Let us help you win this war." The Council laughed at first. What could humans possibly offer? They were barely spacefaring. Their technology was inferior. Their ships were smaller. Their weapons were weaker, but they were desperate. The Vorath were winning. So Queen Velrissa, the ancient ruler of the Confederation, agreed to one meeting. Just one. If the humans could prove their worth, an alliance would be considered. That's why Ji-won was here now, approaching the largest spaceship she had ever seen. The Confederation flagship was like a floating city, gleaming with silver and gold, powered by technology humans barely understood. "Docking in 5 minutes," Hyejin announced. Ji-won took a deep breath. She wore her formal military uniform, dark blue with silver insignia. On her chest were medals from conflicts the aliens had never heard of. Wars fought on Earth, on Mars, in the asteroid belt. Small wars by galactic standards, but wars nonetheless. The ship docked with a gentle thud. Ji-won and Hyejin walked through the airlock into a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. The walls glowed with soft light. The air smelled strange, like flowers mixed with ozone. Ambassador Choi was waiting for them. He was an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had spent 20 years dealing with alien species. He knew how to talk to them, how to make them listen. "Captain Park, Commander Lee," he said with a slight bow. "Are you ready?" "Yes, sir," Ji-won replied. Choi led them through winding corridors filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others floated in the air. One creature looked like it was made entirely of crystal. They all stared at the humans as they passed. Finally, they reached the throne room. The doors were massive, 20 feet tall, carved from a single piece of white stone. They opened silently. Inside, the room was vast. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above. The floor was polished crystal that reflected everything like a mirror. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat Queen Velrissa. She was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow from within. Her eyes were large and golden without pupils. She wore robes of silver that moved like water. Ji-won had read that she was over 2,000 years old. Looking at her now, Ji-won believed it. There was something ancient in those golden eyes. Around the throne stood representatives from dozens of species. Military officers, diplomats, advisors, all of them watched the humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. "Approach," the Queen said. Her voice was like music, high and clear. Ji-won walked forward with Hyejin and Choi flanking her. They stopped at the base of the platform and bowed. Ji-won kept her face neutral, professional. "Ambassador Choi speaks highly of human military capability," the Queen said. "He claims your species can help us defeat the Vorath." A ripple of laughter went through the assembled aliens. One of them, a large reptilian creature with scales like armor, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, with respect, this is absurd," he said. "Humans are primitives. They achieved space travel only recently. What can they possibly teach us about warfare?" More murmurs of agreement. Ji-won felt Hyejin tense beside her, but she kept her own face calm. She had expected this. The Queen raised one hand and silence fell immediately. "General Thakros raises a fair question," she said. "Captain Park, what makes you qualified to advise us on military matters?" This was it. The moment everything would change. Ji-won looked directly at the Queen, meeting those golden eyes without fear. "Your Majesty, I understand your doubts," Ji-won said. "Our technology is less advanced. Our ships are smaller, but we have something you don't have, something you've never needed before." "And what is that?" the Queen asked. "Experience," Ji-won said simply. "Your Majesty, when did the Confederation last fight a major war?" The Queen was silent for a moment. "The Unity Wars ended 1,247 years ago. My species," Ji-won said, "has never stopped fighting. Not for a single generation, not ever." The room went very quiet. The Queen leaned forward slightly, interested now. "I propose a demonstration," Ambassador Choi said. "Let Captain Park face one of your combat simulations. If she fails, we will leave and never speak of this again. But if she succeeds, you must give our alliance serious consideration." The Queen studied them for a long moment. Ji-won could feel those golden eyes weighing her, measuring her. Finally, the Queen nodded. "Very well," she said. "Captain Park, you will face a simulation programmed with Vorath battle tactics. If you can defeat it, we will talk further." General Thakros made a sound like a snort. "The simulation has never been beaten," he said. "Even our best commanders can only achieve a stalemate." "Then there's nothing to worry about," Hyejin said coolly. The Queen stood. "We will convene in the war room in 1 hour. Prepare yourself, Captain Park. I am curious to see what humans consider warfare." As they were led away to prepare, Ji-won felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on her back. She had 1 hour to prove that humanity belonged at the galactic table. 1 hour to show them what 10,000 years of continuous warfare had taught her species. She smiled slightly. They had no idea what was coming. The war room was different from the throne room. It was smaller, darker, and filled with technology. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing star maps and fleet positions. The walls were lined with screens showing data streams that Ji-won couldn't fully understand. Queen Velrissa sat on a simple chair this time, not a throne. Around her stood military officers from various species. General Thakros was there, his scaled face showing clear skepticism. Ambassador Choi and Commander Hyejin stood to one side watching. In the center of the room was a control station. Ji-won stood before it, her hands resting lightly on the interface. The controls were alien to her, but Hyejin had spent the last hour teaching her the basics. It would have to be enough. "The simulation is simple," General Thakros explained. "You command a defensive fleet protecting a colony world. The Vorath will attack with superior numbers. Your goal is to prevent them from reaching the planet's surface. Most commanders lose within 20 minutes. Our best achieve stalemate by forcing the Vorath to withdraw after heavy casualties on both sides." "How many times has the simulation been completely defeated?" Ji-won asked. "Never," Thakros said with something like satisfaction. "The Vorath AI is programmed with actual battle data from their campaigns. It learns and adapts. Victory is theoretically possible but has never been achieved." Ji-won nodded slowly. She looked at the holographic display showing her fleet composition. 15 warships, various classes, 32 support vessels, defense platforms orbiting the planet. Against this, the Vorath would bring overwhelming force. "I'm ready," she said. "Begin simulation," the Queen ordered. The holographic display lit up with red markers. The Vorath fleet appeared at the edge of the system. 40 warships heavily armed moving in tight formation. They advanced steadily toward the planet. Ji-won watched them come. The alien officers expected her to form a defensive line, to meet the Vorath head-on with her inferior numbers. That's what they always did. That's what honor demanded. Instead, Ji-won gave an order that made several officers gasp. "All ships, retreat to the far side of the planet. Move now." "Captain, you're abandoning your position," Thakros protested. Ji-won ignored him. Her fleet pulled back, disappearing behind the planet. On the display, the Vorath fleet paused, clearly surprised. Then they accelerated, sensing weakness. "They're pursuing," one of the alien officers said. "They'll catch your fleet in minutes." "Good," Ji-won said calmly. The Vorath fleet rounded the planet in pursuit. Their formation was tight, efficient, ready for battle. What they found was Ji-won's fleet spreading out, still retreating. "Deploy mines," Ji-won ordered. "Full spread, timed detonation." The support vessels released thousands of small explosive devices behind them as they fled. The Vorath fleet, moving at high speed, sailed straight into them. The explosions lit up the holographic display. 5 Vorath ships were destroyed immediately. 10 more were damaged. Their tight formation broke apart as ships tried to avoid the mines. Now, Jiwan said, all ships attack formation. Target their command vessel. Her fleet turned and charged. But they didn't engage the whole enemy force. Instead, Jiwan's ships focused all their fire on a single target, the largest Vorath vessel at the center of their broken formation. Concentrate fire, she ordered. Ignore everything else. The Vorath command ship tried to defend itself, but 15 warships firing together was too much. Its shields collapsed. Its hull breached. It exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Retreat again, Jiwan said. Back to the planet behind the defense platforms. The alien officers were muttering now, some in disbelief, others in outrage. This wasn't how battles were fought. You didn't run away, set traps, and strike from ambush. That was dishonorable. The Vorath fleet, now without central command, hesitated. Individual ships began making their own decisions. Some pursued Jiwan's fleet. Others held position. The coordination that made them dangerous was breaking down. Split your forces, Hyejin whispered, watching the enemy. Come on, do it. The Vorath did exactly that. 20 ships chased Jiwan's fleet toward the planet. 15 stayed back, uncertain. The rest tried to regroup. Defense platforms, Jiwan ordered. Fire on pursuing ships only. Support vessels provide covering fire for the platforms. Warships prepare for hit-and-run tactics. What followed was not a glorious battle. It was a systematic dismantling of the enemy fleet. Jiwan never committed to a direct fight. Her ships would dart in, fire, and retreat. The defense platforms would engage enemies that got too close, then go silent. The Vorath couldn't predict where the next attack would come from. Broadcasting false signals, Jiwan said to Hyejin, who was managing the electronic warfare suite. Make it look like we have reinforcements arriving. Hyejin grinned and worked her controls. Suddenly, the Vorath sensors showed multiple new fleets appearing at the edge of the system. They weren't real, just ghosts in the computer. But the Vorath couldn't tell the difference. The remaining Vorath ships began to withdraw. They had lost their command ship. Half their fleet was damaged or destroyed, and enemy reinforcements were apparently arriving. Without central coordination, local commanders made the logical decision to retreat. Pursue, Jiwan ordered. Don't let them regroup. Hit them while they're running. Her fleet chased the fleeing Vorath, picking off stragglers. By the time the simulation ended, 38 of the 40 Vorath ships were destroyed. The remaining 2 escaped into faster-than-light travel, badly damaged. Jiwan had lost 4 ships. The war room was completely silent. The holographic display faded. Jiwan stepped back from the controls and turned to face the Queen. Queen Velrissa stood slowly. Her golden eyes were wide. Around her, the military officers looked shocked. General Thakros opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again without making a sound. That was, the Queen began, then paused. That was unlike anything I have ever witnessed. You cheated, Thakros finally managed to say. You used deception. You retreated from battle. You targeted their commander specifically. These tactics are dishonorable. These tactics win wars, Jiwan said simply. General, with respect, the Vorath don't care about honor. They care about victory. If you keep fighting them the way you've always fought, you will lose. The Queen raised her hand for silence. She walked slowly down from her platform until she stood directly in front of Jiwan. The 2 women looked at each other, human and alien, separated by biology but connected by the reality of war. You are correct, the Queen said quietly. We are losing. Our codes of honor, which served us well in times of peace, have become our weakness in this war. She paused. Captain Park, I must ask you something. These tactics you employed, are they standard for human military forces? Yes, Your Majesty, Jiwan replied. What I just did would be considered basic small unit tactics. We have strategies far more complex, far more effective. The Queen looked troubled. I sense there is much about your species that we do not understand. Tell me, Captain Park, what is your formal military designation? Your full title? Jiwan straightened to attention. This was the moment. This was what they came here for. My full title, she said clearly, is Captain Jiwan Park, Terran Defense Force, bearer of the unbroken chain, keeper of 10,000 wars, guardian of the endless vigil. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Queen Velrissa's golden eyes went very wide. Her mouth opened slightly. For a long moment, she simply stared at Jiwan. And then something extraordinary happened. The ancient queen, ruler of a galactic civilization, who had lived for 2,000 years and commanded fleets of thousands of ships, took a step backward. She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. She just stared, and in her golden eyes was something that looked very much like fear. The silence in the war room stretched for what felt like forever. Queen Velrissa stood frozen, staring at Captain Jiwan Park with wide golden eyes. Her blue skin had gone even paler. Around them, the alien officers looked confused. They didn't understand what had just happened. Ambassador Choi stepped forward carefully. He had expected this reaction. He knew what those titles meant. "Your Majesty," he said gently, "perhaps we should adjourn to a more private setting. There is much to explain." The Queen blinked as if waking from a dream. She nodded slowly, still looking at Jiwon. "Yes," she said, her musical voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, I think that would be wise." General Thakros began to protest. "Your Majesty, surely whatever explanation they have can be shared with your military council." "No," the Queen said firmly. Her color was returning along with her composure. "General, I need time to process what I have just learned. Dismiss the council. I will speak with the human delegation alone." The officers filed out reluctantly, casting curious glances at the humans. When the room was empty except for the Queen, Jiwon, Hyejin, and Choi, Velrissa sat down heavily in her chair. "I am a telepath," she said quietly. "Not a powerful one, but sensitive enough. When you spoke your titles, Captain Park, I felt something, a weight. An immense crushing weight of history and pain and death." She looked up at them. "Explain to me what those words mean." Ambassador Choi activated a small device. A holographic display appeared, showing Earth rotating slowly in space. "Your Majesty, humanity is approximately 200,000 years old as a species," he began. "For most of that time we were primitive, but for the last 10,000 years, we have been civilized. We have built cities, created art, developed technology. And in all that time," Jiwon said quietly, "we have never stopped fighting each other." The Queen looked at her sharply. "Never?" "Never," Jiwon confirmed. "Not for a single generation, not for a single decade. Somewhere on Earth, humans were always at war with other humans." Choi changed the holographic display. Now it showed a timeline stretching back thousands of years. Red marks covered almost every section. "We have documented over 10,000 major conflicts," Choi said. "This doesn't include small battles, border skirmishes, or civil wars. Just major wars. Wars that killed thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions." The Queen stood and walked closer to the display. She reached out as if to touch it, her hand passing through the hologram. 10,000 wars," she whispered. "How did your species survive?" "Barely," Hyejin said. "Several times we almost destroyed ourselves completely. We developed nuclear weapons in the mid-20th century. For decades, we held enough firepower to make our entire planet uninhabitable. We came very close to using them." "But you didn't," the Queen said. "No," Jiwon said. "We learned. Slowly, painfully, we learned that total war serves no one. We learned restraint. We learned when to fight and when to negotiate. But we never forgot how to fight. We couldn't afford to." Choi changed the display again. Now it showed military academies, training facilities, weapons research centers. Every human soldier studies military history going back thousands of years. They learn from the mistakes and successes of every major conflict. Ancient battles fought with swords and shields. Modern battles fought with plasma weapons and orbital bombardment. All of it is preserved, studied, and incorporated into our doctrine. "The unbroken chain," the Queen said, understanding dawning in her eyes. "It refers to this continuous military tradition." "Yes," Jiwon said. "Every soldier who came before me fought and died to teach the next generation how to survive. That knowledge passes from teacher to student, general to lieutenant, veteran to recruit. The chain has never broken, not once in 10,000 years." The Queen sat down again. She looked older now, tired. "Keeper of 10,000 wars, you carry the lessons of all those conflicts." "Every human soldier does," Hyejin said. "The tactics, Captain Park used in the simulation weren't innovative by our standards. Their basic doctrine, fights, ambushes, psychological warfare, targeting enemy command structures, we've been using these strategies for thousands of years. And the last title? The Queen asked. Guardian of the Endless Vigil? Ji-won met her gaze steadily. It means we never truly rest. Even in peacetime, we maintain our military forces, we train, we prepare, we watch the borders, because we know from bitter experience that peace is temporary. War always comes again. Your species has never known true peace, the Queen said. It wasn't a question. No, Your Majesty, Ji-won said. We haven't. And perhaps that's made us harder than we should be. Perhaps it's made us too quick to see threats, too ready to fight. But it's also kept us alive. It's made us very, very good at surviving. The Queen was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was troubled. The Confederation has enjoyed peace for over 1,000 years. We had wars before that, yes. The Unity Wars were terrible, but we learned from them. We established codes of honor, rules of engagement. We made war civilized. War can never be civilized, Ji-won said softly. That's a contradiction. War is chaos, violence, death. You can put rules around it, but at its core, it remains brutal. The Vorath understand this. They don't follow your codes of honor. They fight to win by any means necessary. And you can teach us to fight the same way, the Queen said. Yes, Ji-won said, but understand what you're asking for. If you let us teach your military forces, they will change. They will learn to think like humans think. They will learn to be ruthless when necessary, to use deception, to strike without warning. Some will call it dishonorable. The alternative is extinction, the Queen said quietly. Yes, Ji-won agreed. The Vorath won't stop. They won't negotiate. They want your territory, your resources, your worlds. They will take them unless you stop them. The Queen stood and walked to a window that looked out over the stars. When I felt the weight of your titles, Captain Park, I felt something else too. Underneath all that history of violence, I felt restraint. Control. You are warriors, yes, but you are not monsters. We learned to be both, Ji-won said. To fight like demons when necessary, but to show mercy when we can. It's a difficult balance. How do I know, the Queen said, still looking at the stars, that once the Vorath are defeated, you won't turn your weapons on us? If you are such skilled warriors, if you have such a long history of warfare, what prevents you from becoming conquerors yourselves? It was the question Ji-won had been waiting for. She walked to stand beside the Queen at the window. Because we've already tried that, Your Majesty, she said quietly. In our history, we had empires that tried to conquer the world. They all failed. They all fell. We learned that conquest creates enemies who never forgive, never forget. We learned that true strength lies not in domination but in cooperation. She paused, choosing her words carefully. We're not here to become your masters. We're here because we see the same pattern we've lived through countless times. An aggressive enemy threatens innocent people. If we have the power to help and we don't, then what good is all our experience? What purpose does the endless vigil serve? The Queen turned to look at her. You believe in protecting the innocent? It's one of the few things that keeps us human, Ji-won said. Yes, we know how to wage war. We know how to kill efficiently. But we also know why we fight. We fight so that others don't have to. We fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That's what the Guardian of the Endless Vigil means. We stand watch so that others can sleep peacefully. For the first time since the simulation ended, Queen Velrissa smiled. It was a small, sad smile, but genuine. I believe you, Captain Park, she said, and I believe we need your help. But this will not be easy. Many of my officers will resist. Many species in the Confederation will question this alliance. Change never is easy, Ambassador Choi said, but it's necessary. The Queen nodded. Very well. Tomorrow, I will announce the alliance to the full council. Captain Park, you will be promoted to High Commander and given authority over joint military operations. Commander Lee, you will establish training protocols for Confederation forces. She looked at each of them in turn. You carry a terrible burden, you humans. 10,000 years of warfare. I cannot imagine what that does to a species, to a soul. But perhaps that burden can serve a greater purpose now. Perhaps your endless vigil can protect more than just your own people. That's all we've ever wanted, Your Majesty, Ji-won said. The Queen touched Ji-won's shoulder lightly, a gesture of respect among her people. Then let us begin. Let us teach my people how to survive. And let us hope that when this war is over, we can teach you something in return. What would that be? Ji-won asked. The Queen smiled again. Perhaps we can teach you what peace truly feels like. The announcement of the alliance caused exactly the chaos that Queen Velrissa had predicted. The Confederation Council chamber erupted in arguments. Representatives from dozens of species shouted at each other in languages Ji-won couldn't understand. The translation devices struggled to keep up. High Commander Ji-won Park stood on the main floor wearing her new insignia. The silver star on her collar marked her authority over combined forces. Beside her, Commander Heejin Lee watched the chaos with calm eyes. They had expected this. General Thakros was among the loudest objectors. Your Majesty, this is madness. We cannot place our military forces under the command of a species we barely know. A species that has been spacefaring for only 3 centuries. A delegate with crystalline features spoke up. The general is correct. The humans demonstrated clever tactics, yes, but that was a simulation. Real warfare is different. We should not abandon our traditional methods based on one impressive display. Queen Velrissa let them argue for several minutes. Then she stood and the room fell silent. Her presence commanded respect even from those who disagreed with her. The Vorath have destroyed 17 of our worlds, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. They have killed billions of our citizens. Our traditional methods, our codes of honor, our rules of engagement have failed us. The question is not whether to change. The question is whether we will survive. She gestured to Ji-won. High Commander Park has offered us a chance. Her people have expertise we lack. Expertise born from necessity, from survival. I have decided to accept this help. Those of you who disagree may present your alternative solutions. The chamber was quiet. No one had solutions. The Vorath were winning and everyone knew it. Finally, General Thakros spoke more calmly. Your Majesty, if we are to proceed with this alliance, at least let us see what the humans propose. Let them explain their methods before we commit our forces. The Queen looked at Ji-won, who nodded. High Commander, please present your assessment. Ji-won stepped forward. Heejin activated a large holographic display showing the current war situation. Red zones indicated Vorath-controlled territory. Blue zones showed Confederation holdings. The red was spreading. Honorable delegates, Ji-won began. Your military forces are brave and well-trained. Your technology is superior to anything humanity possesses. Your ships are faster, your weapons more powerful, and yet you are losing. The question is why? She pointed to several recent battle sites. In each major engagement, your forces have met the Vorath in direct combat. You form defensive lines. You engage in ship-to-ship battles. You fight with honor and courage. The Vorath do not. Heejin changed the display to show Vorath tactics. The enemy uses overwhelming force. They strike military and civilian targets without distinction. They don't hold territory, they destroy it. They don't capture enemies, they eliminate them. This is total war. You ask us to become like them, the crystalline delegate said, to abandon our principles. No, Ji-won said firmly. I ask you to be smarter than them. There is a difference between fighting to win and fighting without honor. Humans learned this difference the hard way. We can teach you. She brought up a new display. Commander Lee has developed a training program. It will take 3 months to implement fully. During this time, your forces will learn new tactics while maintaining their core values. We will not teach you to target civilians or use weapons of mass destruction. We will teach you to be unpredictable, to use the terrain to your advantage, to strike where the enemy is weak. General Thakros studied the training program with a critical eye. This includes what you call psychological warfare, deception, misinformation. These are tactics we have never employed. Because you've never needed to, Heejin said. In a war between honorable opponents, such tactics are unnecessary. But the Vorath are not honorable opponents. They will exploit every weakness, every hesitation. If you continue to fight them openly and directly, you will continue to lose. A small delegate with green skin spoke up. I have studied human history. You have fought wars that killed millions of your own people. How do we know you won't lead us down the same path? Jiwon had been waiting for this question. Because those wars taught us what not to do. Every mistake we made, every atrocity committed, every civilian death we documented and studied. We learned from our failures. The tactics we're teaching you are designed to win wars while minimizing casualties on both sides. She paused, looking around the chamber. I understand your doubts. I would doubt us too. But consider this. If we wanted to conquer you, why would we offer to help? Why not let the Vorath weaken you first, then move in ourselves? We're here because we've seen this story before. An aggressive empire attacks peaceful civilizations. If good people with power do nothing, evil wins. The chamber was quiet. Delegates looked at each other, uncertain. Finally, an elderly delegate with feathers instead of hair stood. Queen Velrissa, I propose a compromise. Let the humans train a small volunteer force. If their methods prove effective, we can expand the program. If not, we abandon the alliance with no hard feelings. The Queen considered this. High Commander Park, would this be acceptable? Jiwon nodded. We can work with volunteers. Give us your best officers and soldiers, the ones willing to learn. We'll prove what we can do. The vote was called. Not everyone agreed, but enough did. The alliance would proceed, starting with a volunteer force of 500 soldiers from various species. 3 weeks later, Hyejin stood in a training facility watching alien soldiers attempt human combat drills. It was not going well. The problem wasn't physical ability. Many of the alien species were stronger or faster than humans. The problem was mindset. They kept trying to fight honorably, even in training exercises. Squad 3, you just walked into an obvious ambush, Hyejin called out. Why didn't you check the flanks? A tall officer with blue scales approached. Commander, we detected no enemy forces on the flanks. It would be dishonorable to hide there when the main force is clearly ahead. Hyejin sighed. The Vorath don't care about honor. They care about killing you. If you keep thinking like this, you'll die in the first real battle. She gathered all the trainees together. Listen carefully. I understand this is difficult. Your entire military tradition is based on direct confrontation and honorable combat. But honor doesn't matter if you're dead. Your families don't care if you died honorably. They care that you're gone. A young female officer raised her hand. She was from a species with silver skin and large black eyes. Commander Lee, how do humans reconcile these tactics with morality? How do you justify deception and ambush? Hyejin thought for a moment. We justify it by asking what we're protecting. If I use deception to defeat an enemy soldier, that soldier doesn't die. If I use an ambush to capture an enemy position, I might save my own troops from a frontal assault that would cost hundreds of lives. The goal isn't to be cruel. The goal is to win while causing the least amount of suffering. She brought up a holographic display. Let me show you something from human history. This is the Battle of Thermopylae, fought over 2,000 years ago. 300 soldiers held off an army of thousands using terrain advantage and tactical positioning. They didn't win through superior numbers or technology. They won through smart use of geography and tactics. The trainees watched, fascinated, as the ancient battle played out. Now watch this, Hyejin said. She showed them a modern space battle. Human ships used hit-and-run tactics, never staying in one place, always moving. Always unpredictable. Same principles, different technology. Use the environment. Be unpredictable. Strike where the enemy is weak. Retreat when they're strong. This isn't cowardice. This is survival. Slowly, over the following weeks, the trainees began to understand. The blue-scaled officer who had questioned the ambush drill became one of the best students. He started thinking creatively, finding ways to use alien physiology and technology in unexpected ways. The silver-skinned officer organized her squad into small, independent units that could operate without central command. When Hyejin asked why, she explained, "You taught us that losing the command ship in my first simulation. If we're not dependent on central authority, we can keep fighting even if we lose our leaders." By the end of the 3rd month, the volunteer force was ready. They had learned to think like humans while maintaining their own strengths. They could fight with honor when appropriate and fight dirty when necessary. Jiwon watched the final training exercise from the observation deck. The trainees executed a complex multi-phase attack that would have made any human commander proud. They used deception, misdirection, and overwhelming force at the point of attack, but they also showed restraint, accepting enemy surrenders and avoiding unnecessary casualties. They're ready, she said to Queen Velrissa, who stood beside her. Then it is time to test them, the Queen replied. The Vorath are besieging Thalassia Prime, one of our most important industrial worlds. If it falls, we lose the capacity to build new ships. Jiwan nodded. We'll save it. Give me command of the volunteer force and a dozen of your best ships. I'll show you what they've learned. The Queen looked at her with those ancient golden eyes. If you fail, the Council will never accept this alliance. Everything depends on this battle. Then we won't fail, Jiwan said simply. 2 days later, the combined force Thalassia Prime hung in space like a blue-green jewel. From orbit, it looked peaceful. But High Commander Jiwan Park could see the Vorath fleet surrounding it like predators circling wounded prey. 25 warships, holding position just beyond the planet's defensive range. On the command deck of the Confederation cruiser Dawn's Light, Jiwan studied the tactical display. Commander Hyejin Lee stood at the sensor station, analyzing enemy patterns. Around them, alien officers from a dozen species worked their stations with nervous efficiency. They're not attacking, the blue-scaled officer observed. His name was Kelrin, and he had become one of Jiwan's most trusted subordinates during training. They're just waiting. They're starving the planet, Jiwan said. No ships can land with supplies. No ships can evacuate civilians. They're patient. In a few weeks, the population will be desperate. Then the Vorath will offer terms, surrender or die. So we break the siege, Hyejin said. But we're outnumbered 2-1. Jiwan smiled slightly. We are, but they don't know we're here yet. Our approach vector kept us hidden behind Thalassia's moon. That gives us surprise. She brought up a tactical map. Here's what we're going to do. We call it a feint and flank. It's one of the oldest tricks in human warfare, but the Vorath have never seen it. The alien officers gathered around as she explained the plan. It was bold, risky, and completely unlike traditional Confederation tactics. 3 ships will approach from the north, Jiwan said. They'll broadcast on all frequencies, making noise, appearing to be the entire relief force. The Vorath will turn to meet them. While they're distracted, the rest of our fleet will emerge from behind the moon and strike their flank. Kelrin studied the plan with his large, thoughtful eyes. This requires precise timing. If the flanking force arrives too early or too late, the deception fails. Which is why you're leading the feint, Jiwan said. You've proven you can think on your feet. Keep them engaged, keep them focused on you. Make them angry. The angrier they are, the less clearly they'll think. Kelrin's scales rippled, which Jiwan had learned was his species' equivalent of a nervous laugh. You want me to insult them? If necessary, Hyejin said with a grin. Psychological warfare, remember? Get inside their heads. Make them emotional. The silver-skinned officer, Sierra, raised a concern. High Commander, what if they don't take the bait? What if they see through the deception? Then we adapt, Jiwan said. No plan survives contact with the enemy perfectly. That's why we trained you to think independently. If something goes wrong, use your judgment. Trust your training. The officers dispersed to their ships. Jiwan watched them go, feeling the weight of command. These weren't human soldiers. They were aliens who had learned human ways. If this failed, if they died because of her plan, it would end any hope of the alliance. You're worried, Hyejin said quietly, reading her friend's expression. Of course I'm worried, Jiwan replied. They're good soldiers, but this is their first real battle using our tactics. Everything we've built depends on the next few hours. They'll do fine, Hyejin said. They learned from the best. Jiwan smiled at the compliment. Let's hope you're right. 2 hours later, Kelrin's small force emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. His 3 ships immediately began broadcasting on all frequencies. Attention, Vorath forces, Kelrin transmitted. This is Commander Kelrin of the Galactic Confederation. You are ordered to withdraw from Thalassia Prime immediately, or face destruction. The response came quickly. Confederation vessel, you are outnumbered. Retreat or be destroyed. Kelrin took a deep breath, remembering Jiwan's instructions. Make them emotional. Make them angry. He thought of what a human would say in this situation. I've seen your combat records, he said. You only fight well against those who can't fight back. Against actual soldiers, you're pathetic. There was a pause. Then the Vorath fleet began moving. Not just a few ships. All 25 of them turned toward Kelrin's small force. It worked, Kelrin's tactical officer said, sounding surprised. They took the bait. Of course it worked, Kelrin said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Now comes the hard part. Keep them focused on us. Evasive maneuvers, pattern delta. His 3 ships began a carefully choreographed dance, staying just ahead of the Vorath fleet. They looked like they were trying to escape, leading the enemy away from the planet. Behind Thalasia's moon, Jiwan watched the tactical display. Kelrin's doing well. The Vorath have committed their entire force. All ships prepare to engage. Her fleet of 9 warships moved into position. They would have one chance at this. One perfect moment to strike. Kelrin status, Jiwan transmitted on a secure channel. They're fully engaged, High Commander. Taking fire but shields holding. They're about as angry as I can make them. Good. Hold position for 15 more seconds, then brake hard to starboard. We're coming in. Jiwan counted down silently. When she reached 0, she gave the order. All ships engage. 9 Confederation warships emerged from behind the moon at full speed. They hit the Vorath fleet's exposed flank like a hammer striking glass. The first 3 Vorath ships exploded before they could react. The next 5 tried to turn, but they were too slow. Jiwan's ships were already past them, driving deep into the enemy formation. Split formation, Jiwan ordered. Each ship pick a target. Remember your training. Fast, precise move to the next target. The Vorath fleet was in chaos. They had been focused entirely on Kelrin's ships. Now they were being attacked from behind, and they didn't know how many ships faced them. In the confusion, they fired at each other as often as they fired at the enemy. Syra's ship danced between 2 Vorath vessels, letting them fire at each other while she concentrated on a third target. Her weapons officer, trained in human tactics, targeted the enemy's engine section. One precise strike and the Vorath ship was dead in space. Don't destroy them if you don't have to, Jiwan transmitted. Disabled ships can be captured later. Dead ships teach us nothing. It was a lesson from human history. Information from captured ships was often more valuable than the destruction itself. Kelrin brought his 3 ships back into the fight now, attacking from the other side. The Vorath fleet was surrounded, outnumbered by tactics rather than ships. Vorath Command Vessel, this is High Commander Park, Jiwan broadcast. Surrender now and your crews will be treated with dignity. Continue fighting and you will all die. For a moment nothing happened. Then, one by one, the remaining Vorath ships powered down their weapons. 15 ships disabled, 7 destroyed, 3 surrendering. Kelrin's feint had worked perfectly. The Dawn's light entered orbit around Thalasia Prime. Below, the population could see their saviors. Supply ships began landing immediately, bringing food and medicine. On the command deck, Jiwan allowed herself a moment of relief. They had done it. The first real battle using human tactics, and they had won decisively. Hyejin was grinning broadly. Kelrin's asking if he can insult enemy commanders in every battle now. He says it felt good. Jiwan laughed. Tell him to write a manual on psychological warfare. We'll make it required reading. A communication came through from Queen Velrissa. High Commander Park, I watched the entire battle from the Confederation Command Center. Your tactics were extraordinary. The Council is assembled and wishes to speak with you. I'm available whenever they wish. Your Majesty, Jiwan replied. They wish to expand the training program, the Queen said, and Jiwan could hear the smile in her voice. It seems everyone wants to learn the human way of war now. Jiwan looked out at Thalasia Prime, at the people they had saved. This was why the endless vigil existed. This was why humans never stopped preparing for war. Not for conquest, not for glory, but for moments like this, to protect those who needed protection. Tell the Council we're ready, she said. We have a war to win. The Alliance was no longer an experiment. It was now the Confederation's best hope for survival. And across dozens of worlds, soldiers began learning the lessons of 10,000 human wars. The Vorath Empire was about to learn what it meant to fight an enemy that never forgot, never stopped preparing, and never, ever gave up. 6 months after the victory at Thalasia Prime, the war had changed completely. High Commander Jiwan Park stood in the war room of the Confederation flagship, looking at tactical displays that now showed more blue than red. The Vorath Empire was losing. It hadn't been easy. Every battle was hard fought. Every victory cost lives. But the Confederation forces, now trained in human tactics, were winning. They had recaptured 5 worlds. They had destroyed dozens of Vorath fleets. Most importantly, they had learned to fight smart instead of just fighting hard. Commander Heejin Lee entered the war room carrying a data pad. Her expression was serious. We've intercepted Vorath communications. You need to see this. Ji-won took the pad and read quickly. Her face went pale. They're planning to use planet killers. Heejin nodded grimly. 3 major Confederation worlds. They can't win conventionally anymore, so they're going to destroy entire planets, kill billions of civilians, force a surrender through terror. Ji-won set down the pad carefully, controlling her anger. When? 2 weeks. The weapons are being prepared at their main shipyard near their homeworld. Once they launch, we won't be able to stop them in time. Then we strike first, Ji-won said. We hit the shipyard before they can launch. It's deep in Vorath territory, Heejin pointed out. We'd have to fight through their entire defensive network. It would be the most dangerous mission of the war. The alternative is letting them kill billions of innocent people, Ji-won said. That's not acceptable. Queen Velrissa entered the war room. She had been monitoring the conversation remotely. High Commander, I understand your reasoning, but this mission would require us to strike at the Vorath homeworld. We would be attacking civilian populations. No, Your Majesty, Ji-won said firmly. We would be attacking military infrastructure. The shipyard, the government command centers, their military headquarters. We can do this surgically with minimal civilian casualties. The Queen looked troubled. Even if we could, should we? Does this not make us like them? Ji-won walked to the window looking out at the stars. She had thought about this question many times in her career. Your Majesty, humanity learned a hard lesson in our history. We fought a war where both sides attacked cities, killed civilians, tried to break each other's will through terror. Millions died. When that war ended, we established rules. Laws about warfare. We agreed that military targets were legitimate, but civilian populations were not. She turned back to face the Queen. What I'm proposing isn't revenge. It's not punishment. It's prevention. We strike military targets to prevent them from using weapons of mass destruction against your people. We warn civilians to evacuate the target areas. We use precision strikes, not area bombardment. We do everything we can to minimize innocent deaths while achieving our objective. And if the Vorath use their own civilians as shields? The Queen asked. Then we find another way, Ji-won said. We always find another way. That's what separates us from them. The Queen was silent for a long time. Finally, she nodded. Prepare your mission, High Commander. But I have one condition. I'm coming with you. Ji-won blinked in surprise. Your Majesty, that's not necessary. The risk is too great. Exactly why I must be there, Velrissa said. If we are asking our soldiers to risk their lives on this mission, I will not hide safely behind them. Besides, my diplomatic skills may be useful. Perhaps we can offer the Vorath a chance to surrender before we attack. Ji-won wanted to argue, but she saw the determination in the Queen's golden eyes. As you wish, Your Majesty. 1 week later, the largest fleet ever assembled by the Confederation approached Vorath space. 50 warships, hundreds of support vessels, and thousands of soldiers. It was enough firepower to level a planet, but that wasn't the plan. Ji-won stood on the command deck of the flagship with Queen Velrissa beside her. Heejin was coordinating with fleet commanders. Kelrin and Syra led their own squadrons now, veterans of a dozen battles. Approaching the outer defense perimeter, the navigation officer reported. Open a channel to the Vorath homeworld, Queen Velrissa ordered. The screen showed a Vorath military commander, tall and covered in dark armor. His species looked similar to humans, but with gray skin and red eyes. He looked surprised to see Queen Velrissa. Queen Velrissa, he said. This is unprecedented. You lead the attack personally? I come with an offer, Commander, the Queen said. We know about your planet-killer weapons. We know you plan to use them against civilian populations. I am here to give you one chance to avoid this battle. Surrender now. Dismantle those weapons. We will guarantee fair treatment for your people. The Vorath commander laughed. Surrender? You think we fear you? We have defended our homeworld against better fleets than yours. You haven't faced humans before, Ji-won said quietly, stepping into view. The commander's red eyes fixed on her. Ah, the human. We've heard about you. About your tricks and deceptions. Your dishonorable tactics. Honor doesn't matter if your people are dead, Ji-won said. I'm giving you this warning as a courtesy. In 24 hours we will begin our attack. All civilians should evacuate military zones immediately. Anyone who remains will be considered a combatant. You cannot win, the commander said. Our defenses are impenetrable. That's what everyone says, Hyejin muttered. The communication ended. Ji-won turned to the Queen. We tried diplomacy. Now we do this the hard way. The next 24 hours were spent in careful preparation. Reconnaissance drones mapped every defense installation. Stealth ships infiltrated close to the planet. Electronic warfare units prepared to jam communications. Everything had to be perfect. The Vorath are evacuating civilians from military zones, Hyejin reported. They're taking our warning seriously, at least. Good, Ji-won said. That means fewer innocent deaths. What about the planet killer weapons? Still at the shipyard. They're trying to speed up the launch schedule. They know why we're here. Then we can't wait any longer, Ji-won said. All ships begin the attack. Remember, precision strikes only. No area bombardment. Every shot counts. The Confederation fleet moved forward. The Vorath defense stations opened fire immediately. Space lit up with energy beams and missiles. But the Confederation ships didn't advance in a straight line. They weaved and dodged, using every trick human military doctrine had taught them. Kelrin's squadron drew fire from the main defense platforms, while Syra's ships slipped past and hit the platforms from behind. It was the same feint and flank tactic they had used at Thalassia Prime, but on a much larger scale. Defense perimeter breached, the tactical officer reported. Multiple platforms destroyed. Good. Phase 2. Begin planetary assault. Target the shipyard first, then the government complex, then military headquarters. Precision strikes only. Ji-won watched the tactical display as specially equipped ships began their bombing runs. Each target was hit with exactly the force needed to destroy it. No more, no less. They weren't trying to level cities. They were trying to win a war while causing the least possible suffering. The shipyard exploded in a brilliant flash. The planet killer weapons were destroyed before they could launch. One threat eliminated. Government complexes targeted, the weapons officer reported. Awaiting final authorization. Ji-won looked at Queen Velrissa. This was the moment. Destroying the Vorath government would end the war, but it would also kill hundreds of people. Do it, the Queen said quietly. End this war. Ji-won gave the order. The government complex was hit with surgical precision. Within hours, the Vorath military command structure had collapsed. Across their territory, individual commanders began making their own decisions. Some fought on. Many others surrendered. By the end of the day, the Vorath homeworld had fallen, not through mass destruction, not through genocide, but through calculated strikes that removed their ability to wage war. A provisional Vorath government emerged quickly, made up of civilians who had never supported the war. They contacted Queen Velrissa immediately, asking for terms. What do we do now? Ji-won asked the Queen. Velrissa smiled. Now we show them what humans taught us, that the goal of war isn't destruction, it's peace. We help them rebuild. We offer them a place in the Confederation. We turn enemies into allies. Ji-won looked out at the Vorath homeworld below, a world that hours ago had been their enemy, a world that tomorrow might be their friend. 10,000 wars taught us how to fight, she said softly. Maybe this one can teach us something better. 3 months after the fall of the Vorath government, High Commander Ji-won Park stood in the same throne room where she had first met Queen Velrissa. It looked different now. Instead of military officers, the room was filled with delegates from across the galaxy. The war was over. Today was about building peace. The former Vorath Empire was now the Vorath Republic, a provisional member of the Galactic Confederation. Reconstruction efforts were underway on dozens of worlds. Former enemies worked side by side, rebuilding what had been destroyed. Commander Hyejin Lee stood beside Ji-won, wearing dress uniform instead of combat gear. It felt strange after months of warfare. Kelrin and Syra were there too, along with hundreds of other soldiers who had learned to fight like humans and survived. Queen Velrissa entered the chamber, and everyone stood. She wore robes of silver and blue, colors of peace rather than war. Her golden eyes found Ji-won in the crowd, and she smiled warmly. Today we celebrate not victory but survival, the Queen began. We survived a war that threatened our entire civilization. We survived because we learned to adapt, to change, to accept help from unexpected places. She gestured to the human delegation. When Ambassador Choi first proposed an alliance, many of us were skeptical. When Captain Park demonstrated human military capability, many of us were frightened. We looked at humanity and saw a species that had never known peace, that had fought 10,000 wars, that carried violence in their very souls. The Queen's expression became thoughtful. But we learned something important. We learned that humans are not violent because they enjoy destruction. They are warriors because they have had to be. And, most importantly, they have learned to control that violence, to direct it toward protection rather than conquest. She walked down from her throne to stand directly before Jiwan. "High Commander Park, when you first spoke your titles to me, I was speechless. I felt the weight of 10,000 years of warfare pressing down on you. I felt the burden your entire species carries. I couldn't move because I finally understood what it meant to be human." The Queen's voice grew softer. "You carry the memories of every war your people ever fought. Every lesson learned in blood. Every mistake that cost millions of lives. You bear that weight so that others won't have to. That is what the Endless Vigil truly means." She placed her hand on Jiwan's shoulder. "Today I bestow upon you the highest honor of the Galactic Confederation. You are named Guardian of Unity, the first of your species to hold this title. You have earned it not through conquest but through sacrifice, not through domination but through protection." The assembled delegates applauded. Jiwan felt the weight of a medal being placed around her neck. It was heavy, made of some alien metal she didn't recognize, but it wasn't as heavy as the weight she already carried. "Thank you, Your Majesty," Jiwan said quietly, "but I didn't do this alone. Every soldier who fought, every commander who trusted us, every person who was willing to learn, they all deserve this honor. Which is why," the Queen said with a smile, "Commander Lee will establish the first multi-species military academy. It will teach human tactics alongside Confederation honor codes. It will train the next generation of defenders, combining the best of both our traditions." Yejin looked surprised but pleased. "I would be honored, Your Majesty." The ceremony continued with other awards and recognitions. Kelrin received the Star of Valor for his actions at Thalassia Prime. Syra was promoted to Fleet Commander. Even Ambassador Choi was honored for his diplomatic work in bringing the alliance together. But the most moving moment came when a Vorath delegate stepped forward. She was young, with the gray skin and red eyes of her species, but her expression was different from the hostile commanders they had fought. She looked nervous and hopeful. "Queen Velrissa, High Commander Park," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "I represent the new Vorath government. We want to apologize for the suffering our former leaders caused. We want to thank you for the mercy you showed when you could have destroyed us completely." She turned to look directly at Jiwan. "We have studied human history since the war ended. We learned about your world wars, your near-extinction events, your long struggle toward peace. We see now that you could have treated us the way your ancestors treated each other, but you didn't. You showed us a better way." Jiwan felt something catch in her throat. "We learned those lessons so that others wouldn't have to," she said. "That's all we've ever wanted. To protect people from making the same mistakes we made." After the ceremony ended, Jiwan found herself on an observation deck with Queen Velrissa. They stood together watching ships come and go from the station. Cargo vessels bringing supplies to war-torn worlds. Medical ships carrying doctors and medicine. Construction ships heading out to rebuild damaged stations. "Do you ever wonder what your life would be like if humans had never been so violent?" the Queen asked. "If your species had known peace from the beginning?" Jiwan thought about it. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But then I remember that our violence taught us compassion. Our wars taught us the value of peace. Our near extinction taught us to protect life. All life, not just our own." She looked at the Queen. "If we had never known war, we couldn't have saved you from the Vorath. Our suffering had a purpose even if we didn't know it at the time." "And now?" the Queen asked. "Now that the war is over, what will you do? Will you return to Earth? Will you continue the endless vigil?" "I've been offered a permanent position as Supreme Military Advisor to the Confederation," Jiwan said. "I'm considering it. There's still so much to teach, so much to learn, and honestly, after everything we've been through, I can't imagine leaving now." The Queen smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that. The Confederation needs people like you, people who understand both war and peace, violence and mercy, strength and compassion." "Your Majesty," Jiwan said, "can I ask you something? That first day when I told you my titles, what exactly did you feel? What made you so speechless?" The Queen was quiet for a long moment, remembering. "I am a telepath, as I told you. When you spoke those words, bearer of the unbroken chain, keeper of 10,000 wars, guardian of the endless vigil, I didn't just hear them, I felt them." She turned to face Jiwan fully. I felt the weight of every battle your species ever fought. Every soldier who died teaching the next generation how to survive. Every civilian caught in the crossfire. Every city destroyed. Every peace treaty broken. Every war that seemed endless. All of it, compressed into a single moment resting on your shoulders. The Queen's golden eyes were bright with emotion, but underneath all that pain and death I felt something else. I felt hope. I felt determination. I felt a species that refused to give up, that kept fighting not for glory but for survival. And most importantly, I felt compassion. Despite 10,000 years of warfare, despite all the reasons you had to become monsters, you remained human. That's why I couldn't move, she continued. I was looking at you, one human soldier, and seeing the entire history of your species. All the darkness, but also all the light. All the violence, but also all the mercy. It was overwhelming. Jiwan felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. No one had ever put it into words like that before. Do you still feel that way? She asked. Every time I look at you, the Queen said honestly, every human carries that weight whether they know it or not. But you, Jiwon Park, you carry it consciously. You understand what it means. That's what makes you special. They stood in comfortable silence for a while watching the ships. Finally, Jiwon asked the question that had been on her mind since the war ended. Your Majesty, do you think my people will ever know true peace? Will we ever lay down the burden of the endless vigil? The Queen considered this carefully. I don't know, she said honestly. Perhaps not. Perhaps the vigil must always continue because the universe always has threats, but maybe that's not the right question. What is the right question? Perhaps the question is not whether you'll ever stop being warriors, but whether you can learn to be more than just warriors. You've already proven you can fight. Now prove you can build. You can protect. You can teach. You can heal. The Queen smiled. Your titles speak of war and vigilance. Perhaps one day your descendants will earn new titles. Builder of peace, keeper of knowledge, guardian of hope. Wouldn't that be something? Jiwon smiled back, imagining it. Yes, she said. Yes, it would. Hyejin found them a few minutes later. Jiwon, the council wants to discuss the military academy curriculum. And apparently half the Confederation wants their officers trained by humans now. We're going to be busy, Jiwon laughed. Good, idle soldiers get soft. Let's go show them what the endless vigil really means. As they walked away, Queen Velrissa watched them go. 2 human soldiers who had changed the fate of a galaxy. 2 warriors who had taught an ancient civilization how to survive. She thought about that first day, when Jiwon had spoken her titles and Velrissa had been unable to move or speak. She had been afraid then, seeing the weight of 10,000 wars resting on one species. But now she understood. The weight wasn't a curse. It was a gift. Humanity had suffered so that others wouldn't have to. They had learned hard lessons so that those lessons could be shared. They carried the burden of the endless vigil so that peaceful species could sleep safely,